Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city. On this Monday means we're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Fired up, you're starting your work week off with us, and we appreciate it very, very much. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and we have got plenty to cover over the next 2 hours. Are we watching the beginning of the end of this era of New Orleans Saints football? We'll chat about that at the bottom of this hour. Certainly got to get to my SEC picks against the spread in hour number 2. It was a wild weekend, an incredible weekend in college football on Denton Day. We'll be here to cover all of it coming up at 2:30 in his normal spot. We'll also talk a little Commanders with Denton as they played tough at Baltimore, but weren't able to get the win there. So they dropped that one after a great 3-game winning streak there for Washington. So we'll chat with Denton here coming up at 2:30. We got to start with LSU and Ole Miss. That'll be our opening drive presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge, brand new sponsor here of the Hunt Palmer Show, and we certainly do appreciate them. It was an incredible day on campus at LSU, an incredible day on campus. It started with ridiculous traffic, which is fine with me. A lot of people are going the same place, and if it takes some time to get there and it takes some time to leave, that's okay. But the buzz on campus all day was absolutely palpable. It was awesome. The weather was good. A little warm, but the weather was really good. The energy was great. And that was evident when we did the pregame show out there between the Rams and the PMAC. When you got into the stadium, it was absolutely packed. The vibes were great. The energy was awesome. And what ensued over the next 4+ hours was absolutely incredible theater. It was a historic rivalry. It was sensational uniforms. It was exciting football. There were twists and turns and drama, and the game was in the balance late. And you got the incredible drama and the home team pulling it off. And it was just an incredible day. And that was what we talked about all week leading up to the game was, this doesn't happen all the time. It's not all the time that LSU has a good team and a good record. It's not all the time that the opponent is really, really good. It's not all the time that the game is played at night. It's not all the time that the weather is good. And when you get all those ingredients and they all come together, what can happen is really, really special. And Saturday night was really, really special. We will talk about that one forever. On Friday afternoon, from Lod Cook, I interviewed Brad Davis. Brad Davis did not win the Heisman Trophy. His teams did not win a national championship. He did not go on to an illustrious NFL career or make that Hall of Fame. Brad Davis is a dentist in Louisiana. But he's Brad Davis because of Burt Jones to Brad Davis on one Saturday night in Death Valley. And that's what we got on Saturday night. I thought the actual key to the game was that LSU did what Brian Kelly has been calling for since last year. Brian Kelly has been calling for complementary football since they came off the field in the ReliaQuest Bowl, and he made wholesale changes to his defense. And after the game, he said this: many people were expecting maybe a similar shootout to last year. I didn't think that would be the case. I can't say enough about the defensive effort tonight. Sacks, harassing the quarterback, making big plays when they needed to, and that's what we've been talking about in terms of getting better every single week on both sides of the ball. That was complementary football. That's what he said, and that's a term we have used, or he has used, time and time and time again, trying to get this program to a championship level. You can't play at a championship level the way they played defense last year. And he said in his press conference today, we didn't tackle anybody last year. Like, that was a direct quote. And that's true. They were terrible last year. LSU did not play complimentary football last year really at any point. The offense was carrying the entire weight all year long. And if they faltered like they did in the second half against Florida State and got blown out, when Jaden got hurt against Alabama and they got blown out, if they faltered, they lost. They had to be perfect in the second half against Arkansas and score every single time down the field. They had to be perfect against Missouri. And finally, the defense got a couple turnovers. But they've been working towards being complementary. I didn't say dominant. I said complementary. And listen to these examples of the two units, the offense and the defense, giving and taking and working together. It started in the first drive of the game. LSU, of course, takes the football. As we talked about on Friday, they will take the ball. I don't like it. It's going to happen. It just is what it is. But they go 3 and out in 40-something seconds. 3 and out, 40 seconds. Well, that's a point where Ole Miss can take control and throw the first punch because they're going to get the ball back. LSU's defense gets a 3 and out immediately. That's complimentary. I know you falter on offense, defense comes right back. Nussmeier has his first pass intercepted. Ball gets tipped up. Ole Miss intercepts it. They run it back into the red zone to the 13-yard line. Well, that's real trouble. The defense bailed them out. Got a 4th down stop. No points allowed. Then Ole Miss gets a field goal. Ole Miss gets the ball back. They go and get the 50-yard touchdown run to go up 10-0. Well, the defense finally buckled. They bailed you out 2 times early, but they finally buckled. What's the offense going to do? The next drive, offense goes 75 yards in 6 plays, touchdown to Trey Green. That's complimenting. Was the defense doing it early? The offense bails them out. Ole Miss immediately at that point goes back down and they score a touchdown at 17-7. The offense does respond. They go get a field goal. Then, after that field goal, the defense gets the fumble. Whit Weeks knocks it out, lets LSU kick another field goal. So you've really had 2 and 2 in the first half of, well, we faltered here, but the other unit picks you up. That's complimentary. Second half, third quarter, Ole Miss gets a field goal with 17-17 to go in the third quarter. They take a lead. LSU goes right back, down 7, and gets that field goal answered to cut it back to 4. Well, then the LSU defense makes a big play. Zai gets the interception in the end zone where Ole Miss is threatening to go up 2 scores. If you were watching the game or you were in Tiger Stadium or wherever you were paying attention, you realize that if Ole Miss went up 2 scores, it was going to be trouble. And they had a chance there, and Zai picks off the pass. Well, Nussmeier then makes his worst decision of the day and throws the pop fly down the field and gives Ole Miss an easy interception. That was his worst moment of the game. But the defense holds and forces a punt, complimenting the offense. Last year, if Jaden throws that interception, the defense is going to give it right up. You know that. You're going to go down 2 scores, you're going to be toast. This defense held and forced the punt. And then up 20-16, Ole Miss is driving. They get all the way down to the 23, where they could, again, go up 2 scores, and the defense holds to a field goal. And the offense goes 75 yards for the touchdown at the end. And then, of course, in overtime, both units played great. LSU forces the hold on first down. The crowd gets into it. That's complimenting the entire team. And you get the penalties on Ole Miss to back them up. Ole Miss incomplete with 3 passes, 57-yard field goal. I cannot believe the kid made that, but he did. Credit to him. It's a huge kick. And then LSU goes right there for it on the first play and hits it. But there were 3 instances where Ole Miss had a chance to go up 2 scores and the defense held every time. The offense had the defense's back. When Ole Miss would score, the offense would go down there and score. The 2 units worked together. And no one is going to suggest that for LSU to allow Ole Miss to have 464 yards is some sort of dominant defensive effort. It's not. But you held Ole Miss to 23 points in regulation. That's good enough to win. It's just like you were in position against USC, had them held to only 13 points midway through the fourth quarter, and then you gave up the 2 late drives. But the defense did enough and made enough big plays and made enough stops to let the offense get its rhythm, which it did not have in the first quarter. Garrett Nussmeier started 3 of 11 in this game. And I wouldn't suggest that he was at his absolute best in this game, which he said after the game, it was his worst game of his career. I realize it's not a huge sample size, but those 2 turnovers were rough, and his completion percentage was 43%. None of it was spectacular. The running game wasn't spectacular. Nussmeier wasn't spectacular for the entirety of the game. The defense didn't dominate. But what did you get? Complimentary, big-time clutch efforts when you needed them, really from everywhere. The pass rush was outstanding. 6 sacks. At the line of scrimmage, you had 9 tackles for loss. In the secondary, you made some plays. I mentioned the Zy Alexander pick. His Pro Football Focus grades were sensational in coverage, almost 90. Then you get P.J. Woodland with the pass breakup late in the game. Like you had some guys in position to make some plays in the secondary, and they did that. And then offensively, there were some tough sledding. Ole Miss is good on defense, but you made sensational plays when you had to, and we'll talk about that in the next segment, what Garrett Nussmeier did in the game, and you did enough to win. If they play that game again in Tiger Stadium, I don't know if LSU wins. If they play that game again at a neutral site, I don't know if LSU wins. They play that game in Oxford, I think LSU's in some trouble. But that was the point when we looked at this schedule back in August, and you start looking at how things are going to shake out. You look at what you thought would be LSU's toughest conference games, and they were at home. And that was going to be a huge advantage for LSU. And Saturday night, that crowd was a huge advantage for LSU. It spurred the LSU team on. It inspired the defense. It made communication tough on Ole Miss. And the Tigers, with complimentary football, got it done. It was an epic, epic, epic night in Tiger Stadium, and one that I think furthered the program along. You are showing quite obviously that there are improvements being made because of this coaching staff on defense. And the offense hasn't really taken a huge step back, even though you lost all those key cogs from last year. LSU may lose to Arkansas. They may lose the next 2. They're tough spots to play on the schedule and based on location on the road. Then you got Alabama coming in here. Like, it's no joke. And you're watching that in the SEC every week. Tennessee's in dogfights with Vanderbilt. Tennessee's in dogfights with Arkansas and losing, and with Florida. Alabama loses at Vanderbilt. They're in a dogfight with South Carolina. Georgia is scuffling against Mississippi State. Texas is struggling with Mississippi State in the first half. Like, it's a tough league right now. And every win should be celebrated. And right now, LSU has all of its goals that it set out to accomplish in August on the table. Ole Misses are in trouble, and we talked about that all week. Right now, LSU is set up for some really good things. They just got to keep getting better on the defensive side of the ball, and I thought that was a huge step in the right direction on Saturday night. That's our opening drive presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge. When we come back, let's talk about Garrett Nussmeier and what we saw from him in the ball game Saturday night in Death Valley. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, AVSSLA.com is that website. Mitchell Fisher and his team, just fantastic, fantastic people right here locally in Baton Rouge, whether it's on the audio side with surround sound, whether it's the video side with mounting your televisions or getting that home entertainment system set up just the way you want it, or security. Keep that house safe and sound. They can handle all of it at Audio Video Security Solutions. Check out the Instagram, AVSS_BR. Or check them out online, avssla.com. They both offer great examples of some of the capabilities that Audio Video Security Solutions has. And one of those that I don't talk about every week, but I think it is important, is Wi-Fi. If your Wi-Fi struggles a little bit at home or in the office, maybe because of where you sit or where you're trying to stream or you're trying to get onto your phone and the Wi-Fi is just spotty in the house here or there, get some mesh Wi-Fi and boost that signal in your home. You can elevate that all over the place with the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions. Don't ask me how that works. I don't know. I don't understand any of it. Mitchell Fisher and his team do, and I can promise you this, that installation is going to be seamless, and the customer service after the installation is first class. We love at the Palmer House working with the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions. You should as well. Check them out online, avssla.com, avssla.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Moving right along here, Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. Printing, copying, scanning, whatever line of work that you're in. If you've got a printer, copier, scanner, Gulf Coast Office Products needs to be your first call. GCOPnet.com, GCOPnet.com. There was a lot of good in the game for LSU on Saturday night. We will talk about Whit Weeks. We will talk about Braden Swenson. Both of them were honored by the SEC today. Whit Weeks, for his 18 tackle performance, was the SEC Defensive Player of the Week. Braden Swenson added 2 sacks. He was the Defensive Lineman of the Week in the SEC. The pass protection was exemplary all night long against a relentless pass rush. That was fantastic to see. Trey'Dez Green with a touchdown. Aaron Anderson with a big play. Mason Taylor coming up huge late. There was a lot of good. Zy Alexander, we mentioned. LSU safeties were very good as well. There's a lot of good. But here's the deal. This LSU team is going to be in Garrett Nussmeier's hands far more often than not. That's just the reality of the situation. And after the game, Brian Kelly talked about Garrett's performance on Saturday night.
Garrett would tell you that, there were things that he learned. I thought he grew more today than at any time that he's been here. That was a growth game for him. And you may see it differently, but as a coach, the growth that he was able to exhibit through that game and at the end is going to serve him well.
Here's the deal. Garrett Nussmeier said after the game it was the worst game of his career. I'll say that up front, is what he said. That was his quote. And statistically, you can back that up. I mean, he completed 43% of his throws. He was 22 of 51. He turned it over twice, and one of them was absolutely heinous in a huge spot in the game when LSU had made a defensive play. Zy picks the ball off in the end zone. It's time to go back down there, take the lead, and take control of the game. And Nussmeier throws a pop-up down the left sideline that is basically caught like a punt by the Ole Miss secondary. It was awful. So if you take all of that, 43%, starting 3 of 11, 2 interceptions, one of them was terrible, the other one set Ole Miss up at the 13-yard line, all that's bad. Sure, no question. But if you really want to talk in nuance about Garrett Nussmeier's performance on Saturday, in the big picture, I thought it was sensational because you have to take everything into account. LSU's running game did not do very well. Caden Durham never got loose. He averaged 3 yards a carry on his 12 carries. He had one play down the sideline that he busted, but it got called back for holding. Josh Williams was okay. And then Caleb Jackson came in for the 1 4th down and got blown up in the backfield. But LSU's running backs, Durham and Williams, accounted for 71 yards, and then you take Jackson's 3 away. So you're looking at 68 yards on 22 carries. That's just not a successful running game. And Ole Miss at that point, especially with the lead, can pin their ears back and try to rush the passer. And you're talking about Princely Umanmielen. You're talking about Jared Ivey. You're talking about Walter Nolan. You're talking about J.J. Pegues. You're talking about Sontaran Perkins. Like, these guys are NFL pass rushers. They will cash checks at the next level for getting after the quarterback. And they're all coming. And oh, by the way, if you were watching the game on Saturday, did you see a ton of separation by LSU's wide receivers? LSU was working in tight windows. I mean, as I mentioned, those first 3 drives LSU had where Nussmeier starts 3 of 11, like, they're not open. He's making throws and balls are getting knocked down. But Nussmeier never quit. He never flinched. He got the ball out quickly, even if he was under pressure. He never got sacked. Credit to the offensive line, credit to Nussmeier, both there. And when LSU needed big throws, he made them. I mean, the 2 4th down throws on the last drive were sensational. LSU's facing a 4th down, game's on the line, and Nussmeier on the first one to Mason Taylor on that one that was just past the sticks on the left side of the formation, he moved a little bit to his left, and that was not an open throw. Taylor was not covered, but there was a man on him. And the ball had to be put out in front of Taylor, and it had to be put right on the face mask, and Garrett Nussmeier zipped it in there on the money. And then you get to 4th and 6 after you ran the ball on 3rd down with 33 seconds to go in the game, and you've got to have it. And I know that Garrett Nussmeier threw it in rhythm, and I know that if you were watching that game on television, that it looked like, because of where Nussmeier threw it, where Anderson caught it at the 1-yard line, and how he fell into the end zone, it looked like a great throw at an open receiver. Go back and look at Wilson Alexander's Twitter, or go back and watch the end zone cut on YouTube. When Garrett Nussmeier releases this football, Aaron Anderson is almost not even visible to him because the defender is literally in line between Garrett Nussmeier and Aaron Anderson. Anderson has not crossed his face to come open. And with the game on the line, incomplete, you're done. Season goals about over. You got 2 losses, one to a team you think you're competing with for a playoff spot. You need 5-6 yards, and you chuck it to the end zone for 20. And I mean on the freaking money to a guy that wasn't even open when he made the throw. That is an NFL throw. NFL throw. When you absolutely had to have it. And now you start to think about some of these games. You fall behind 17-0 at South Carolina. You were down to Wisconsin in the bowl game last year. You had to go 75 yards on Ole Miss. And Garrett Nussmeier has delivered and delivered and delivered. No, not necessarily against USC. That was a little bit more on the defense, allowing those 2 drives. But in 3 of 4 instances where you had to have it late in games from your quarterback, he has delivered. Think about the throw he made to Lacey to get LSU down in there into touchdown range at South Carolina. Great throw. And then incredible throws to Mason Taylor and Aaron Anderson. And here's the deal with Nussmeier. Like, I don't believe, Brian Kelly talked about this today. We got to get better running the ball. And I believe that. And I think they probably will get a little bit better running the ball. But they're not going to be a dynamic running team. They're just not. They're better at pass blocking. Read my Pro Football Focus grade story up on LouisianaSports.net, and you'll see, like, the offensive lineman pass block grade, incredible. They had 59 dropbacks against that pass rush and didn't give up a sack. That's incredible, y'all. Incredible. But they don't run it great, and they're not going to, I don't think. And LSU's defense is improving, and they got some good players, and I think they'll give LSU a chance, but they're not going to dominate. Sure, they might smother Oklahoma here. Maybe they can put a muzzle on Vanderbilt in that running attack. It's possible. I'm not saying they will or won't. It's possible. What's not going to happen is they all of a sudden look like Georgia from 2 years ago. So what I'm getting at here is they're not going to run it great. They're not going to be a dominant defense. That means that the difference in winning and losing in these tiny margins that the SEC has become this year. I just talked about that in the last segment. These margins are so small in every game. Bama to Vanderbilt. Tennessee and Arkansas. LSU and South Carolina. LSU and Ole Miss and Kentucky. Tennessee and Florida. Like, these are really tight football games. And the difference in winning and losing, I think, moving forward, is largely going to rest on 13. You need him to be awesome. And he already has proven he can make the highlight reel play. He can make the pro throw, the anticipatory throw, the deep ball, the arm strength. He can do all that. What's got to happen is you got to quit with these turnovers. You had one interception wiped off because of the horse collar at South Carolina. You had a potentially game-losing interception return for a touchdown come back for the unnecessary roughness on Kennard when he hit Nussmeier at South Carolina. And you had 2 very, very, very untimely turnovers on Saturday night. I get it. One's a tipped ball. That's not always controllable. But that interception he threw after the Alexander interception was terrible. And you can't have that. But he threw for 337 yards and 3 touchdowns on what might be the best defense LSU plays this year. I'll listen to Oklahoma. I'll listen to Alabama. I'll listen to Texas A&M, maybe even Arkansas based on what they did to Tennessee. But Florida held Tennessee down for 3 quarters. But Ole Miss might be the best defense you play. And he threw for 337 and 3 touchdowns in a huge, huge, huge game. LSU's got a good quarterback. I know there were a ton of y'all that were all over him on Saturday night. I get it. My Twitter was flooded. And maybe you still feel that way. Maybe you don't based on the last few throws that he made. But you look at this guy and the throws that he's made and what he's being asked to do with a mediocre at best running game, some wide receivers that are struggling to get separation, good SEC defenses, and a defense that's not going to hold teams, generally speaking, to 14 or 17 points. He's doing a lot, and I think he's doing a great job. And I thought his demeanor and his mindset after the game, where he said, look, that's the worst I played, and I got to play better than that, that kind of gives you a glimpse into the kind of guy that he is. And he rose in the biggest moments. And I'll tell you this as we close here on Nussmeier. Like, he didn't do much reading the defense on that first play of overtime. I think when they broke the huddle, whatever, on the sideline and decided what they had, he was going to Lacey. And he snapped it. He hit that pump fake, and then he just threw it up one-on-one. And that's a picture that is going to be hanging in Baton Rouge restaurants for years to come because the Ole Miss corner ends up on his head, literally, and Kyron's just standing there as the crowd erupts to win the game. It was an incredible picture inside Tiger Stadium. It was an incredible night, and I thought it was an incredible performance and a gutty performance by the starting quarterback. Statistically, there were some issues, but when LSU had to have it, Garrett Nussmeier showed up with it. I thought it was awesome to see on Saturday night. Moving right along here on a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. You want your LSU football talk? You can get it on YouTube at Hunt on LSU. Hunt on LSU. Our LSU segments posted there each and every day. When we come back, we will switch gears, sadly, because New Orleans got absolutely run out of their own building back on Sunday. And are we looking at the end of an era? Possibly. Let's do it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Got to make LeBair's Baton Rouge your game day headquarters this season. They've got the biggest screens around, and now you can bet and dine at ESPN Bet in person. And I'll be at ESPN Bet in person coming up on Thursday for Thursday Night Football. That'll be the Saints hosting Sean Payton and the Broncos. So come on out and see us on Thursday night. Also invite you to join the SEC Pick'em contest. You can download the Cover 5 app, put in the code LABRSEC24. This week, I went 3-2. I scored 36 points. That was 19th best. I'm 22nd overall for the season. You can jump in and compete. You just got to do really well to catch up now that we're 6 weeks in. But you can do it. If you're not a member, get the Pin Play app today. LeBair's Baton Rouge, your live sports headquarters. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-589-9966 for help.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Ugly one in the Dome yesterday. Tampa Bay 51, Saints 27. A wild game. There were storylines that just flipped mid-game like 3 different times. It started out a disaster. Tampa going right up and down the field. You get a iffy call on Olave, scoop and score. Could it have been helmet to helmet? Could it have been incomplete? It was neither. Tampa picks it up and scores. And it's 17-0 right out of the chute. But then the Saints scored 27 points in the second quarter. It's just a ridiculous run of quality offense, getting some turnovers, catching some breaks, and you're in the lead. You've got control of the game. You're thinking, okay, well, Rattler looks okay now. They've got him comfortable, and you've kind of taken control of the game. It looked like it was going to get away from you. Okay, well, let's finish. Well, they did not finish. They lost the second half 27-0. And I think at that point, the storyline shifted away from, okay, what do you have in Rattler? Is that exciting? Is that something they can build on? They look okay in the division standings. All right, let's settle in and get ready for a home game in 4 days to, you've lost 4 in a row. You're 2-4. Your starting quarterback's hurt for a couple more weeks. You're on a short week. The fan base is ticked off. And, oh, by the way, the foundation of what this era of the franchise was built on is crumbling. That's the defense. The story here is not Spencer Rattler's debut, 22 of 40, 2 picks, a touchdown, and 243 yards, also 27 yards running. That's not the story. The story's not really, well, Tyrann Mathieu got hurt, and Olave went out with a concussion, and they've got a bunch of injuries. The story is that Tampa Bay scored 51 points, Baker Mayfield threw for 325 yards, and Tampa ran it for 277 yards. The story here is that the New Orleans Saints have the worst defense in terms of yards per game allowed in the National Football League. And if there was one thing you could always count on with Dennis Allen at head coach, it's that the defense was going to be good. And I'm sorry, but injuries to Cesar Ruiz and Eric McCoy and Chris Olave and Derek Carr and Taysom Hill are not allowing Tampa to run the ball for 277 yards. they're not allowing Baker Mayfield to throw for 325 and 4 touchdowns. Yeah, you got 3 picks. Great. You do have good players in the secondary. But the defense is getting gashed. You got propped up, and maybe give yourself some credit. That's fine, but you did get propped up by red zone inefficiencies from the Chiefs last week, where it looks okay you only gave up 26, but they went up and down the field on you. Couldn't get a stop late against Atlanta. And so for 3 weeks, your defense has faltered, and that's Dennis Allen's calling card. And if you don't have that, what do you have? It's like the Office Space scene where they ask, what would you say you do here? I don't think any of us believe that Dennis Allen's had a finely tuned offense. He's finally got the staff he wants. There are injuries on that side of the ball, whatever, okay. I don't think anybody's here to say that the drafting has been sensational, that the game day management's been perfect. I don't think anyone's here to suggest that. What your main role was as the head coach of this team is to make sure the defense is at an elite level. No one was expecting the Saints to be world beaters on offense. They just wanted to be top 15, top 18 in offense with a great defense. And it's not a great defense. Cam's old. DeMario Davis is old. Tyrann Mathieu's getting old. You're not getting anything out of some of your young players like Isaiah Foskey. So you're aging a little bit. Granderson's good. Young's been good. Werner got hurt. I get it. But what you watched on Sunday is unacceptable. And it felt more to me like the foundation slipping away than it did, you had a backup quarterback and he couldn't do anything. You only scored 20 offensive points because you ran a punt back and the defense just kind of got tired and gave up 20 points in the fourth quarter. It to me looked like the foundation buckling. And to me, it feels like this era is slipping away. I don't really enjoy calling for people's jobs. Like that's not, I think there are some people that love the hot take nature of that and it generates clicks and gets a lot of buzz and it gets people galvanized because it's always, things are always going to be great right when you fire the coach. And I think Dennis Allen has been an absolute asset in the Saints organization for a decade and a half. But I just don't see a way out of this. There are a lot of factors at play here that include injuries and some bad breaks. But let's be honest. Last year, you beat the dregs of the league at a quarterback spot in Tommy DeVito and Tyson Bagent and an aging Tannehill. And like you beat as bad as the league could offer you. And this year now, you're playing some good teams. The Buccaneers are a good offense. Kansas City's a good offense. And you can't stop them. And now we see what Dallas has been reduced to. You thought that was a great win. I would suggest maybe let's pump the brakes on that. I don't see a strength here anymore. I don't see a direction here anymore. And I see a city that's about to throw its hands up. And we all know what's coming on Thursday. It's going to be a weird, weird environment in that Superdome. Because I don't think there's a unified stance among the Who Dat Nation on Sean Payton. I think there are plenty of Saints fans who just so much appreciate the golden era of the franchise. I think there are so many fans that feel like he quit on the franchise. I think there are so many that are in between that and kind of indifferent because he's not here anymore. But that usually a fan base is united. If you were in Tiger Stadium last night or Saturday night, nobody was divided there. It's a one-track mind. And right now, you don't have that in New Orleans. And regarding Sean Payton, I think you're starting to get it regarding Dennis Allen. And if things start going south on Thursday, that might be it. If Sean Payton comes in there with a rookie quarterback with mediocre numbers and hammers or hangs big numbers on this defense with that coach and those players in that building, I don't know how you can recover from that. that would be 5 in a row. The old coach rubbing it in your face. And the one pillar that at least everyone could point to and say, well, at least that's consistent, may be washing away. That's what it felt like to me on Sunday. Y'all know me. Like, if on Friday we're talking about a 31-10 win over Denver, well, we'll change the conversation. And I'll say, okay, they're staying alive. Good for them. I'm just telling you how I feel today. I'm just telling you how I felt watching that game yesterday. I felt like we were watching the beginning of the end. And you could tell me that the beginning of the end was last year, and you could, whatever. That's all semantics. I'm just telling you how it felt to me. And it felt real. It felt tangible to me. And I don't know how Dennis Allen's going to handle it. I feel like he's going to pin the blame on himself as he did yesterday. He talked to reporters today, and I don't think you'll see a huge change in his demeanor because he's a pretty even-keeled guy. You don't see him throwing a fit very often. You don't see him providing really insightful, in-depth interviews and questions in press conferences. You see pretty much the same guy all the time, and I've always said that's fine. But the results will speak for the coach. And 51-27 is not an acceptable result. And 4 losses in a row is not an acceptable result. And being an under 500 team at all times when you're the head coach is an unacceptable result. And that's what it's been the entirety of Dennis Allen's time. You wish that there would be a little bit of a different story being written from an injury perspective, but we've covered that time and time and time again. No one cares. You put a roster together, you put a team together, and you go out there and you execute. And New Orleans, for a month now, hasn't done it. If you're looking for your Saints coverage, you can find it on YouTube, Hunt on Saints. Beck, I'll let you kind of chime in there after my dialogue. Like I didn't... When they kicked off yesterday, I didn't plan on doing that because we talked about if you lose your starting quarterback, man, like
it's hard.
It's hard, but you can't give up 51 points. You cannot give up 51 points.
No, to me, it looked like the defense just didn't really care. They didn't really in the second half after you. It was 27-24 at the end of the third quarter, and then. You have that Godwin screen where he breaks 4 tackles and Alontae Taylor just bumps into him and it's just an absurd play. And then after that, the defense just completely gave up and you're giving up 100-something plus yards to a guy that I've never heard of, running back that's got 2 carries for 7 yards. Sean Tucker had 14 carries for 136 yards, 10 yards a carry. We
were exclusively referring to him in our group chat yesterday as S. Tucker because that's like what you would see on his fantasy. Yeah. Like no one would even know who that was.
Who that is.
S. Tucker got it busts another one.
And then last week, Kareem Hunt hadn't played in 2 years and he came in and got 100 yards on the Saints. It's pretty, I mean, obviously it's shocking, but yeah, if Dennis Allen, if his defense is not playing well, you have nothing. I mean, and it just goes back to what he's been as a head coach. Yeah. He's 2-9. The Saints are 2-9 with him against teams over 500. They can't beat any teams that are worth anything. They can beat up some bad teams. They beat up the Panthers. They beat up the Cowboys, who both are looking to be 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. But when you go against good competition, they can't stack up.
Look, Dennis Allen inherited a terrible situation in Oakland, it was in Oakland at that point, and it was terrible, and that's okay. And he didn't get handed, Kalen DeBoer's Alabama situation, okay, that was just a Lexus. He got an organization in fine shape. They had good players on defense. They had some good players on offense. They were in flux at quarterback, and that's a tough thing, but they felt like they could just, and they got a league average quarterback. And right now, you look at the sample size, and it's pretty large, and there's just nothing that would insinuate that you're getting closer to competing for a championship. And I just think that's the bottom line. So we'll see what happens on Thursday, and we'll certainly talk about it all week long. When we come back, can LSU rush the field after beating Ole Miss? We'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. If you locked in a great interest rate 3-4 years ago and you're not in a hurry to move because you don't want to change that 3.5 to 6.5 on your rate, that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't improve your living situation without moving. Get David Duvall and his team to come in, redesign your bathroom totally. You've got one of those big jacuzzi-style tubs that was real popular in the 90s, but you don't ever use it. Well, take it out. That's plenty of room to put in a big walk-in shower that could change the aesthetic of your bathroom and change the functionality of your bathroom. If you've got one of those small little showers that was really popular in the 70s and 80s, it's just a little square, you'd rather have a little bit more room, use that tub room for a shower and make that shower a closet. David Duvall and his team do that all the time. You can see examples of that at their Instagram at One Bath and Closets on Instagram. You can also check out their website, onebathandclosets.com. You can get a free consultation. Ask about their financing, 0% for up to 18 months if you qualify. Makes things a lot easier paying for them. It's One Bath and Closets. Check them out online, onebathandclosets.com, onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
All right, wrapping up hour number 1 here. Hunt Palmer Show presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs. Check out the folks at Gulf Coast Office Products. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. Trey Beal and his team have clients in that vertical, and they are happy to help you and understand how to help you with your printing, scanning, and copying needs. Baton Rouge Business Report, number 1 office supplier in the city. It's Gulf Coast Office Products. Statewide, they can help you out. GCOPnet.com, GCOPnet.com. LSU had to cut Ole Miss a check for $250,000 over the weekend because Tiger fans rushed the field after the overtime win over the Rebels. And it's drawn some attention, like should LSU be rushing the field? It seems to happen like once a year at this point. And people have strong opinions on it, and that's fine. You're not going to catch a super strong one here. It's just the reality of the situation. If you ask me my preference, I don't think you need to rush. You can rush the field beating Alabama, beating Nick Saban, Brian Kelly's first year overtime win, last play of the game. You want to rush the field when you beat Alabama, I'm kind of cool with that. I'd prefer it not against Ole Miss, but here's the situation. And it's not just field rushing. It's playing neck. It's giving out the bracelets they gave out that blow up. When you get 18,000 college kids, half to 3/4 of which are drunk, if you're going to try to get rational behavior out of that group of humans, your expectations are completely out of whack. Just is what it is. That group of people gets in there and cannot wait to sing the words to Neck, and they haven't played Neck in that stadium in almost a decade. They just that's the number one goal of that entire group is to go in there and yell that, and they do it 11 times a game.
Doesn't matter what song, and they just figure it out.
Because they're 18 and 21 and 22, and 18 and 21 and 22-year-olds are drunk and just don't make great choices. It's just part of it. I was there. I was plenty drunk, and I made plenty of terrible choices. Just flatly. It is what it is. And so if you don't want them to throw those things on the field, like they're going to throw them on the field because they're entertained by stupid stuff. And if you give them the opportunity or an excuse to run on the football field, they're going to do it. It's just, so having expectations for that group of people is just not realistic. Trust me, I spent 5 years, let's be clear, I had a full victory lap in that student section. And I loved every minute of it. And I'm now 36 and wouldn't want to sit there if you paid me to go do it. It just is what it is. But like, trying to rein it in and have expectations for the student section, and then once they go, everybody's going to go. But it's just not going to happen. So like, you can try to like have this. And trust me, I talk all the time about my ego being an LSU fan. It pained me all of last week to suggest that I thought Ole Miss had a better team than LSU. To suggest that I thought that Ole Miss's program was in a better place than LSU. That pains my ego as a guy who's watched LSU win 3 national championships in front of my own 2 eyes. But that's the way that I felt about it. And Ole Miss has won more games than LSU the last 3 years. And Ole Miss was in the top 10 when you beat them. And it was a big game, and it was really emotional, and that happened at the end. I don't care if they rush the field. I wish LSU could save the $250,000 to pay recruits with, but like, it is what it is. You have any hot takes on field storming?
No, not really. I would agree with you. I would say maybe not rush the field against Ole Miss and save that one for maybe if we beat Alabama later in the year. But at the same time, man, it's always the circumstance of the game. I mean, if LSU beats Ole Miss, 33-10, I don't think they're rushing the field.
Yeah.
This game goes into overtime. It's emotional. LSU was down late in the game, come back. It's a big comeback win, and so that's not surprising to me. I was there in 2018 when we beat Georgia and rushed the field, and that was a big game. I think a turning point for the team at that point. So I get that one, but yeah, Ole Miss. It's the circumstances, and like you said, the kids are gonna do it, man. They're all hyped up, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. So just if you think, like you said, if you think you're gonna stop them from doing that in that situation, it's just not gonna happen.
Brian Burgess, Hunt, we've come to accept the fact you like to pick against LSU. I have picked against LSU one time the year. I don't know.
Well, Hunt, you have to understand that if you pick against LSU once, you've picked against them 10 times.
Hester told me in the hallway today that I wasn't allowed to enjoy the win because I picked Ole Miss.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's how it works.
Insane.
No. See, Hunt, you can't logically, process the game and decide that you don't think LSU is going to, even though you're a fan, and obviously when you're a fan, you want LSU to win as much as possible. You can't logically break down the game.
The folks on Tiger Droppings said that I spent nothing all week dragging the program. Is what I was told on Tiger Droppings.
That's what you did, Hunt. I heard it all week.
It's an amazing conclusion to draw after that 10 hours of radio that I spent the entire time dragging the program. Sometimes I'm just kind of fascinated what people hear or how they choose to hear it. Look, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening. I appreciate that very, very much. I just sometimes get a little puzzled at how that happens. Let's take a time out. We'll come back and after Sports Center talk about SEC games over the weekend. That's been hour number 1 of the Hunt Palmer Show. Genesis of Baton Rouge, brand new partner here of the Hunt Palmer Show, and thrilled to tell you about our friends at Genesis of Baton Rouge. When you think Genesis, you should think luxury. But when you think luxury, you don't have to think expensive. The Genesis brand is absolutely a luxury brand of vehicles, but it comes at a reasonable price. It's an experience to drive a Genesis, and you got to do it with the folks at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every single new Genesis comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. It also comes with 3 years of complimentary maintenance, 3 years of valet complimentary maintenance. You need an oil change? Well, they'll come get your car at work. They'll drop a new one off to you so you have that if you need it during the day. And they'll go change your oils, deal with the windshield wipers, and then bring that car right back to you. There's a luxury experience that comes with the folks of Genesis of Baton Rouge. They're on Airline at PQ. You can check them out online. It's my friends at Genesis of Baton Rouge.